Forgive me if you hear the pitter-patter of the rain outside. Also, you might hear a buzz or two. I think the power is tripping in my apartment because of the weather here in Vancouver. But today I wanted to showcase a face of glee. Because, my friends, this is the face of a guy who seems to be happy with his brand new team. And I know what some of y'all might be saying, Lego, what are you doing watching a 15-minute interview on the Minnesota Wild's YouTube channel? Like, what? You're like an evil ex going out there and stalking the heck out of somebody that you used to date. What's the issue here, man? Why are you all up in Minnesota's grill? Because, Quinn Hughes had a 15-minute interview with the Minnesota Wild press. Actually, no, it wasn't 15 minutes. It was only about 10. John Hines did the rest of the live stream's worth of questions and answers. But this guy's the man of the hour. And he took that spotlight from somebody that he actually got traded for just a few days ago, in Zeev Buium of the Vancouver Canucks. Because as you had noted, earlier this morning, we had ourselves a Vancouver and New Jersey hockey game where the newest Vancouver Canucks D-man, Zeev Buium, scored himself a goal and an assist. 2 power play points in the span of about 7 minutes of game time to open up his Vancouver Canucks career. That was all fine and dandy, but this was an away game. It was in New Jersey, the Devils were not playing all too great. There was an air in the building. You can tell that maybe some Devils fans were disappointed that there was no Hughes-a-palooza to watch today. Because guess what? Jack Hughes is hurt. He cut his hand on some glass, and then Quinn Hughes got traded. So the only Hughes on the ice in New Jersey this morning was Luke. But Quinn was on the ice here in Minnesota, facing off against the Boston Bruins and a Jeremy Swayman that unfortunately let in 6 goals on 31 total shots against, tanking my fantasy team's week in the process. But my guy, former Vancouver Canuck Quinn Hughes, ended up scoring just 54 seconds into the third period to make it 4-0. We can't play the goal because it's copyrighted material, but Brock Faber plays the puck up to Nick Obey-Kubel. He finds Hartman, who throws it back over to Hughes. He walks in, he shoots, and he fires it by Swayman. It is a beautiful goal, very Quinn Hughes-esque in the way that he's able to walk in and shoot and score. Those are the kinds of goals that Quinn likes to score nowadays. And you can see, based off of the... Oh, by the way, there are sirens outside my apartment. Yeah, everybody's panicking because of the power loss. But afterwards, you did have yourselves Quinn doing this long interview. And I'm going to keep the frame on this right here just because I think it's an awesome picture. I think it's the first time Vancouver Canucks fans, or NHL fans really, have seen Quinn Hughes smile in maybe a calendar year, something like that. The guy rarely showcases any positive emotion, so to see this come across his face, it's quite endearing, isn't it? Now, some of the quotes that Hughes ended up making in the presser were posted onto various parts of social media, and because this has captions, I wanted to skim through this right here. There are questions asked to Hughes about getting traded, the surprise of it all, whether or not there actually was a surprise, whether or not he knew that he would get moved. Quinn went out there and said this. I mean, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say, but, you know, I have the ultimate respect for Jim Rutherford and Francesco Aquilini and the Aquilini family. Pause. Let's just look at that first. I do find it very interesting, and I am not the only one who has noticed this. But I have found it extraordinarily talk-worthy that in Quinn Hughes' Instagram post that he posted saying, "Thank you, Vancouver," and in this interview here, the 10-minute post-game first interview that he had with the Wild Press, in both of these moments, Quinn Hughes did not thank Patrick Allvin. He thanked the Aquilinis and Rutherford, both times, and he even talked about his agent in today's interview. But Quinn has not gone out there and publicly said, "I want to thank Patrick Allvin." It's Rutherford and it's Aqua. Very, very interesting how that goes down. Now, I know there have been conversations like on Halford and Brough earlier last week. There was a conversation between Brough and Frank Saravelli that discusses whether or not Jim Rutherford is actually the guy pulling the strings and making the trades. And then we actually had some word later on in the week that, yeah, apparently the Quinn Hughes trade was such a big thing that Patrick Allvin had to get some help and support, and Jim Rutherford was able to come in and help facilitate that move with Billy Guerin and the Minnesota Wild. But Quinn goes out there and talks about how, hey, Rutherford and Aquilini, they were first class with everything that was going on. Obviously, it was a tough situation, but it felt like it was time. And then there's another segment in the interview where Quinn ends up talking about the Buffalo Sabres, and he sends the message out there that, hey, he feels like maybe around the time the Buffalo game happened Thursday, he was already feeling that, hey, this is probably my last game as a Vancouver Canuck. And, you know, we already made our song and dance. We already talked about Quinn Hughes and the way he left Vancouver. He'll be an electric, amazing, fantastic defenseman with the Minnesota Wild. He is going to be a stud. But you could definitely tell towards the ending parts of his time with the Canucks, despite the fact that he got an assist against Buffalo on Thursday, that this guy was totally checked out. And it was around this American Thanksgiving period where the guy really started to look lackadaisical. He stopped having that exorcism-esque ability to take over an offensive zone shift and just dominate. He would take the puck and he would take the passes, and they would always defer to him because he's Quinn freaking Hughes, and he'd spin around a guy and take a shot and it would get blocked. But it's very interesting because watching today's Minnesota and Boston game, because this game was on television for us Vancouver folk, we were able to watch it. It's quite interesting seeing a hockey team in Minnesota not just defer to Quinn Hughes all the time. Like, you look at the ice time here, first and foremost, yeah, Quinn had the most ice time amongst all defensemen, and I think amongst all the forwards too. Yeah, he was the most played guy. Obviously, it's Quinn Hughes. But he doesn't need to be tasked with 30 minutes a night anymore, nor does he need to be tasked with generating every single offensive zone opportunity. He's got other options, and there are other players that trust each other in the Wild organization. Not saying that the Canucks don't trust each other, but when Quinn Hughes was out there on the power play, every second pass was coming to him. It's been like this for years. Even 2-3 years ago, it was like, okay, it's Miller, Hughes, Petey. Back to Hughes, over to Miller, back to Hughes, back to Miller, down low to the goal line, back to Miller, back to Hughes, back to Petey, back to Hughes. It was always like around that perimeter area, and it's understandable because Quinn's that good, but in Minnesota, they didn't need to do that. And it was like, the depth and the quality of defensemen that exist on this Minnesota blue line, not to say that Vancouver doesn't have decent defenders, not to say that Brock Faber is a significant upgrade over Phil Hronik. I'd say he is an upgrade, but maybe not by that much. Who am I kidding? Yeah, no, Faber is very, very good. But the rest of the lineup here, there's a specific style that Minnesota plays. And Quinn Hughes, feeling it, getting used to it, getting adjusted to it, how different it is from Vancouver, and how they don't need to rely on him every single shift. That must be a breath of fresh air for Quinn, who literally had himself this long interview and talked about all this stuff. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to go out there and watch this yourself. I'm just going to keep it on this happy frame because it's a pretty scarce moment to see Quinn Hughes smiling in public like that. But with all that said, congrats to Quinn for scoring a goal in his very first Minnesota Wild game. Obviously, it's awesome for Canucks fans to see Zeev Buium do the same in his first Canucks game. This will be a crazy trade situation to follow over the next few years. And I think the biggest thing that Quinn Hughes indicated in his interview today was that maybe there was an open-mindedness to him potentially re-signing with the Wild. That was kind of an implied feeling throughout the course of the interview, but we'll talk about that another day. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Quinn Hughes and his debut with the Wild. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.